Leah and the folks at TDOT asked me to just talk briefly about using contractual incentives to accelerate the project. As I mentioned, some of these we've been doing independently from design build since 1995. A plus B bidding, incentives, disincentives have been around since the late 1980s. Lane rental, we operationalized also in 1995. Florida started using something called no excuse incentives here, where there's an incentive is offered, but there's no excuse for not getting the due date. So if you don't meet the due date, then you don't receive the incentive. And there's also no disincentive. We're still tracking that history under SEP 14, so the jury's still out on that. But there are several other methods: liquidated savings, active management payment method that's popular in some of the European countries, where they actually measure traffic flow through the work zone, and the contractor becomes responsible for managing his work zone to maintain traffic moving through the work zone, and incentives are available to make sure that those flows are maintained. Arizona DOT did a version of that about 10 years ago, but there are a number of methods that can be employed within a design build contract to provide an incentive for the contractor to schedule the work appropriately. And I guess TDOT is looking with A plus B for this next big design build contract coming up on I-440. So it is a good fit, it can be done, and it's been used by a number of states. As I mentioned, we've been using A plus B since the early 90s. The contractor bids a time to complete the work, and then each of those days enters into the bid formula based on the time to complete critical work for a particular day. And there's an incentive, disincentive that's included in the contract. So the contractor not only has to bid the work, he's got to bid the time to get critical work done. Can be done by a milestone, could be done for the whole job, but as the job progresses, if he completes the contract one day earlier, he gets an incentive for the value of that day. And if he completes it one day late, then there's a disincentive for the value of that day. How many have done A plus B bidding for TDOT or some other agency? No, just a few, okay. Popular in New York, Florida, Maryland, California, a number of states that have high traffic volumes, and I guess with the traffic levels I saw here in Nashville on the way out, it might be a natural fit for TDOT to consider in that Nashville area. Came very well publicized, 1994. How many of you remember watching the '94 World Series in San Francisco? Giants, I don't know if the Giants were on the field at that time, but the ground began to shake, the cameras began to shake, and you could tell that there was an earthquake happening in San Francisco. They actually stopped the game, if I recall. And of course, numerous problems with transportation structures in that area. Caltrans recovered by doing some of their projects with A plus B bidding, and this became the first well-publicized use of A plus B bidding. They had 10 A plus B contracts. Their road user costs ranged from $21,000 to $330,000 a day. They elected to provide contract provisions which were about half of those road user costs. So the maximum contract provision daily amount was $200,000. But on those 10 contracts, all 10 contracts, the contractors received the maximum, not the maximum incentive, but they all received incentives with the time they bid. Caltrans ended up paying out $47 million in incentives to accelerate those 10 contracts. $28 million, and the road user cost was $47 million. So very well publicized at a very high level within California government and nationally. And that was the first instance of a national exposure to A plus B bidding like that, where the public questioned the value of the incentives that were being paid, but very effective at the time.